Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, brought to you by our good friends over at Briar Greaves Insurance. Protecting your assets starts with a company that you can count on. So whether it's auto, homeowners, flood boaters, or business insurance, there's nobody better in the business to work with than the great people over at Briar Greaves Insurance. For more information about them, visit their website, briargreavesinsurance.com. or give them a call at 813-876-4166. That's 813-876-4166. And make sure you do give them a call, because if you do, before the beginning of next week, you will automatically be entered into a raffle to win tickets to the Bucs Falcons Thursday night game. It's a creamsicle game as well that's taking place not today, obviously, but next Thursday. And yeah, have a chance to win free tickets. So make sure you give Briar Greaves Insurance a call. It is a Thursday edition of the Pewter Report podcast, and we're going to talk about why the Bucs cannot mess this opportunity up to beat a way worse team in the New Orleans Saints. It is round two between the Bucs and the Saints, the first of the dual matchups that the Bucs will have with their NFC South opponents. They'll play two games against the Saints before they even play one against the Carolina Panthers. So go figure. But we've got a lot to break down on today's show, from Bucs Saints, the matchup, from Josh Grizzard, what he said today, a couple of big player returns as well. So let's get all into it. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is my fellow colleague and co-host of the Pewter Report podcast. It is Adam Slavan. Adam, good to have you back on the show. How we doing?
Matt, it's great to be back on the show, and I'm doing great because first and foremost, it's Hate the Saints week. And I think for Tampa Bay coming into this week, there's a little bit more optimism, whether it's players returning, who has returned, but there also was a player who didn't return, and he wasn't out there at practice today. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But I think overall, right now with where the Bucs are at, they're in a pretty good state.
Yes, it very much feels like help is on the way. Help returned when Bucky Irving was able to come through for Tampa Bay last week. And also Ben Bredesen. I think that's going to get lost in the shuffle a little bit, because that's kind of what happens with offensive linemen, unfortunately, unless you're Tristan Wirfs or, one of the bigger named offensive linemen in the league. And I also think we got to remember it was a little bit of a healthier Baker Mayfield as well. But I think before we get into Baker Mayfield, I know we were going to chat about Baker Mayfield first. There's a lot more buzz about Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. Seeing them out there today, because yesterday's practice was a walkthrough. They're kind of just standing around. We didn't even see Mike out there yesterday. He did practice, but it was after the media went back inside. Getting to watch them run around today, sprint, catch some passes. Jalen McMillan was returning punts. He's not going to be the punt returner, but he was out there returning punts and moving around. I think even the sight of it, even if they don't play this week, just the optics of seeing these players out there, it's a way to really energize the entire room. I mean, we spoke to Emeka Ibuka today, and, seeing Mike, seeing Jalen McMillan out there, it's tough to find extra motivation at times, but I think the Bucs are going to have it, knowing that the cavalry is coming through.
Yeah, and you already saw the offense, like, life was breathed into them with the returns of Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin last week. I mean, that was the first thing Grizzard was asked about, was just what they brought into the mix. And he spoke about how they just bring a certain energy, a certain buzz, not just to the offense as a whole, but the teammates, the coaches around them. And then you see Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan kind of do the same out there. Josh Grizzard was asked about it, and I can kind of take what he said in two different ways. He said with Mike Evans, there's the same plan that they had with Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin, getting them up to speed on practice before really seeing how ready he is to continue going. And that's either, Mike maybe doesn't play this week, he doesn't play against the Falcons, and then maybe he gets ready for Carolina. Or, as seen with Chris Godwin, you get him 20, 30 snaps, just get him in the mix a little bit, whether it's this week or against the Falcons, and then kind of ramp him up. So I know Ian Rappaport said some other things. If you want to update the Pewter people.
Yes. So Ian Rappaport was, he's on Good Morning Football. He's on the NFL Network. He's doing a million different things, but he was giving an update, mostly not even about the Bucs. He was talking about JJ McCarthy and what's going on with the Vikings and their quarterback situation. Justin Herbert, who's got a big game on Monday Night Football. Chargers at the Eagles. That's going to be a super exciting game as well. And he mentioned Baker Mayfield, who we'll talk about momentarily. And then he was like, oh, by the way, Mike Evans returned to practice on Wednesday. Jalen McMillan returned to practice on Wednesday as well. And he says that there is a real chance that Mike Evans can go and play on Sunday when the Bucs take on the Saints. Now, as you kind of just mentioned and what Josh Broussard was talking about as well, it seems like that it's going to be a pitch count type of situation.
Yeah.
But can you imagine, Adam, if even because, again, when Chris Godwin Jr. came back, it was 36% of the snaps. Let's say for Mike, they decide on just an even 30 for whatever reason. What if all of those snaps are taken in the red zone, where I think the Bucs have done better, but certainly you're not as good as when Mike Evans is your starting receiver in the red zone. Even seeing him take snaps in that type of area, I think can do wonders for this offense that I think is very close to getting back to what they were last season and even what they were earlier in the year. And just giving the defense something else to game plan for, it is gigantic for this team in more ways than one.
I really like that idea, actually, Matt. And I know on defense, you see like pass rush specialists, like on third down, you have a guy who's really good at getting after the quarterback. You put him in there. Why not do that with Mike Evans? If you're from the 1 yard line, the 3 yard line, you saw the last time the Bucs played the Saints, how much trouble they had getting it in from a yard out. You put Mike Evans out there. At the minimum, he draws attention, 1 to 2 defenders, that fade route that he's so good at. But at the minimum, at the maximum, he gets a touchdown or two. He changes the complexion of this football game. And I think that's a really real scenario. And I like it because I think with Mike Evans, his strengths are, sending him down the field and then in the red zone. So I think they can kind of optimize a game plan around that. And I think that could lead to some good results.
No doubt about it. I mean, I hate the fade pass. I shouldn't say I hate it. I just don't think it works anymore because it's like you're just you're cutting off 80% of the field and you're not even trying to make anything else work. It's just all or nothing on one play, especially on like fourth down. You want to have some options, stuff like that. But I think there's a couple of exceptions to the rule. Mike Evans and the fade pass in the corner of the end zone at times is very unstoppable. I think Devontae Adams is certainly in that category as well. And we saw him do that to Zion McCollum too. But yeah, just another option for Baker Mayfield, another weapon for Josh Broussard to get some things going would be super important for this team. And then Broussard had a very interesting and fun response as well, Adam, to something you were asking him about Jalen McMillan, just kind of talking about the growth and progression. And I think we kind of forget, Jalen McMillan was balling out at the end of his rookie year. It wasn't just the touchdowns. It was touchdowns on 15-yard receptions, 25 yards, 30 yards. And then you and I saw it firsthand in Pittsburgh, not the preseason game, the joint practice with the Steelers. That last 11-on-11, 7-on-7 before practice ended, that was the Jalen McMillan show. So it was frustrating, the fact that he got hurt and it was such a scary type of injury, the way he backflipped and obviously the neck injury. You think that's really serious. But it's also unfortunate because it seemed like Jalen McMillan was really about to fly off this year. And I mean that in a good way. He was about to go all out and show, hey, I know there's a Emeka Egbuka just got drafted. I know Mike Evans is a legend. Chris Godwin Jr. is a legend. But don't forget about Jalen McMillan as well. So it seems like we're probably not going to see him on Sunday. But the overall progression and Josh Broussard hearing what Jalen McMillan still means to this offense, I thought that was super important as well, regardless of whether or not he's going to play.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting, like how Grizzard utilizes McMillan when he comes back, because you're looking at a scenario where the wide receiver room is finally at full strength, because you presume Mike Evans will
Hmm.
probably come back before McMillan. You have Godwin, who's looked more explosive. Don't forget about the rookie sensation Emeka Ibuka. But what Grizzard pointed out was McMillan's ability to win one-on-one, mano-y-mano, as he said. And I think with McMillan, he creates so much separation. Like so many of those touchdowns that you alluded to, like he was wide open. Like he was able to run really good routes in Liam Cohen's offense. And I think the same can be done when he returns. And I think that he just provides another level of juice. Grizzard said, the last part of his comment was he looked good out there today. We're going to see how he progresses. And I think just seeing him look good and kind of get into that conditioning mindset. Chris Godwin spoke about it at length yesterday. It's really difficult for these players, but McMillan, he has so much promise. You saw it at the end of the season. There was a reason why he was number 3 on the depth chart, ahead of Emeka
Yeah.
Ibuka going into the season. And it sucks because with Godwin and Evans getting hurt, McMillan had such a chance to emerge, but unfortunately he was out.
Yeah.
Now, down the playoff stretch, I mean, getting those two guys back is going to be huge, because this offense, it needs all the help it can get to really put points on the board.
It definitely needs some more help. And like I said, like if Chris Godwin Jr. doesn't drop that ball in the end zone and Emeka Ibuka had that drop over the middle of the field, I think we could be talking about not a 20-17 win for Tampa Bay over Arizona. I think we're talking about a 28-17 win, maybe even a
Yeah.
30-17 win. And either way, it's certainly not that it matters in terms of it's not college football. You don't need style points. It doesn't matter if you win by 1 or if you win by 51. But I still think optically it probably, helps with the look of it overall. I want to get to this comment. Lena D says, Tampa Terror is coming. That is true, because with the emergence of Bucky Irving and what he was able to do last game, then you add in a healthier Chris Godwin Jr., who said earlier this week that he's closer to 100%. Not that he wants to put percentages on it. And Bucky and Josh Grizzard and, Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan, it could be a terror for opposing teams. And Keita Villain said this as well, mentions a fracture in the collarbone didn't require much ramping up. If I'm not mistaken, he just has to be ready physically and be able to handle contact. And that's always the other side of things is, yes, we want them to be ready. And I was thinking, oh, Mike looks good. And then I was like, oh, wait, it's not his hamstring injury anymore. It's his collarbone. So can he raise his arm above his head, essentially, is the question. And it's tough because you want to try to, as Cali Puck says, can he reach his arm straight up? I think so. I didn't see him, raise the roof or anything today at practice. But how do you balance a guy getting hit with also keeping him healthy for a game that he's trying to return? It's a little bit of a catch-22, but we will see what's up with Mike Evans, especially after tomorrow if he's out there practicing, and we'll talk to Todd Bowles as well. But I want to talk about the other guy on the screen here. We have been talking about Josh Grizzard, and we can continue to as well. But Baker Mayfield, I think, is an interesting storyline as well, because we're not that far removed from, is Baker going to play? Is he not going to play? And I think it's very, very important that Baker not just played against Arizona, but didn't take too many hits. He talked about that yesterday as well, in terms of not many direct shots on his left shoulder. And he was limited in practice yesterday, albeit a walkthrough. But last week in a walkthrough, he didn't participate at all. So he's already ahead of schedule. But Adam, what do you make of this whole Baker situation? Your thoughts on his performance last week, and how much of this rides on Baker being able to be the guy that can sling it and throw for 4,500 yards and 45 touchdowns?
Yeah, those are great questions. And I think a lot of it rides on Baker Mayfield, because he is the engine that makes this offense go. And throughout the season, he's played good given the circumstances, missing the pieces that he has, the offensive line going through what it has. But Baker, I haven't really seen him. It's been a few weeks since he's really been that game-changing guy. And Los Angeles, unfortunately, he had that shoulder injury. He did just enough this past week against the Cardinals, but I want to see Baker Mayfield take over. And I think after going up against the Cardinals, he didn't take any direct hits. Like, credit to the offensive line, having 4 starters. I mean, that made a huge difference. But I want to see Baker not just scramble around, not just make a couple of throws, but get back to where he was early in the season when games were close. He was that difference. He was why they got out to a 5-1 start. And I feel like, I don't know, after the Lions game, he was just kind of sliding a little bit. But this is a great time, a great opportunity to get back on track. The one thing I will say about that, though, is that if there's one good part about the Saints defense, it's their secondary, actually. The last time the Bucs played the Saints, Baker Mayfield only had 152 passing yards. They had the 7th best passing defense in the league. So I think it's going to be harder than you might expect to get the juices flowing in the passing game. But with all these weapons, whether they return or not, I mean, you still have Ibuka and Chris Godwin. He needs to get going and get hot early.
I agree with you in the sense of New Orleans. Obviously, it was a blowout win for the Bucs, but that offense did not look good against the Saints when the Bucs were in New Orleans. Remember, Anthony Nelson outscored the Saints, so it wasn't like the offense had to do too much. They just kind of had to get out of the way, and you had the debacle with going for it on 4th and goal several times, and they did punch it in one time with Sean Tucker, but they also got stopped another time. And then on top of that, New Orleans typically plays better against the Bucs in Tampa than they do in New Orleans. I do worry about Baker a little bit. He's kind of shedded away from the Superman, trying to be Superman type of thing of just like, I get it. You never want to give up on a play, but then that leads to bad interceptions and fumbles and holding on to the ball for too long. I do feel like, though, in recent weeks, he's still sometimes puts the ball in harm's way a little bit too much. And to me, for this game, which remember, they didn't have Bucky Irving against the New Orleans Saints. The offensive line still looked very different compared to it does now, especially, over the past couple of games and really coming out of the bye.
Yeah.
I think you rely on the run game a little bit more. And I'm not saying like neuter Baker Mayfield or, keep him to under 20 throws or anything like that. But to me, the only thing that keeps New Orleans in this game is if they jump out to a 2-score lead because of a turnover by anyone. But obviously, the main culprit would probably be Baker Mayfield because he's the quarterback and, he has the ball the most. Because, remember when Baker had to get in the face of the Saints players last season to kind of, rev everybody up? I don't think the Bucs can really afford to do so at this time in this game when they have more important things at stake than just the New Orleans Saints.
And I think there still needs to be some consideration about Mayfield's shoulder. He can't just go out there and, be trucking guys. I think, Grisarbis asked about him and that UFC fighter mentality that he was kind of talking about earlier in the year. And you can't do that right now with Mayfield, not to the extent that he was earlier this season. So as you mentioned, I think more of a reliance on the run game, but also when they do pass, stick with the game plan that's worked. And, early in the game, get Mayfield into a rhythm to where he's not mid-game throwing passes way over receivers' heads and he's inefficient, because that's happened at times too. And that's really plagued the offense. In the last game, to Emeka Ibuka, I mean, there was missed chances there. And I think to really get the offense going, Mayfield doesn't have to be the hero, but he really, at the end of the game, it's going to come down to him.
I keep thinking about the overthrow he had on Tez Johnson. And part of me was like, oh, damn, you gotta put that ball on him. And then at the same time, I'm thinking, damn, well, no offense to Tez, but if that's Mike Evans, if that's Chris Godwin, if that's Chris Godwin Jr., if that's Jalen McMillan, is it a reception? I don't know. We'd have to kind of break down the science a little bit more. But he's missed more throws as of late, and I do wonder how much that shoulder has really kind of affected him from making some top throws. But also, there's been other good news with Baker Mayfield. He is a nominee and the Bucs representative for the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. Each team, all 32 teams, have a nominee, and Baker is the Bucs representative. Shout out to the Baker and Emily Mayfield Foundation, where they've been helping out different groups, different causes across the Tampa Bay area. So that's really cool to see.
It's a well-deserved nomination because although Mayfield's only been in Tampa Bay for a couple of years, I mean, just his impact has been so profound because through his Baker and Emily Mayfield Foundation, they have the Be the Ball event every August. And through 3 years, they've raised $600,000. And not just that, there's been other countless ways that he's impacted the community. In 2024, he held a youth pro camp in Land O'Lakes, and just seeing him out there with kids, like he acts like a kid. He just has so much genuine fun giving back to others. And after the hurricanes last year, he donated $50,000. There was a whole story of there was a football team that was in risk of not being able to play for a season. So what does Mayfield do? He donates $18,000 to get them equipment, and they go on to win the title. So just countless ways that Mayfield not only, he makes great passes on the field, but he also passes on such a giving spirit off the field.
He absolutely does. I think you said that really well. I mean, he talks so much more. Baker, for as much attention as he gets, and it's understandable. He's a fiery guy, Heisman Trophy winner. But Baker is more than happy to, prop someone else up, whether it's his teammates, giving shout outs to, other players that have helped contribute in the win, or again, just helping others across Tampa, back in Oklahoma, and different things like that. Him and Emily have truly impacted the Tampa Bay community in a great way. So congrats to them. Hopefully they can get the win. Now, they usually do the nominee and they put him out on the field during the Super Bowl. Mm-hmm. So hopefully Baker can't go out there with everybody because he's playing in the game. And I would imagine he wouldn't run from the sidelines onto the field in that capacity. But definitely big congrats to Baker and Emily and the whole Mayfield family. A lot of great news with the Mayfield family. They got a baby boy on the way. Their charity's been nominated for Walter Payton Man of the Year. So, and he's getting healthier too, based on Baker's words. So we actually just got the injury report. It came out just a moment ago. So we will talk about that in just a moment. But first, let's talk about the good people that are sponsoring the injury report day in and day out, and that's Jorgensen Law.
Welcome to Jorgensen Law, PA, where our family's legacy drives us to fight for your rights. Specializing in personal injury, workers' compensation, and Social Security, we're committed to winning for you. No fees unless we succeed. Trust in our family to help yours. Let's achieve justice together.
That's right, Jorgensen Law. They are the champions of the injured and disabled and the official law firm of Pewter Report, pewterreport.com, and all of the injury news surrounding the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They sponsor each of our injury reports and our injury stories as well. So you can get a free case evaluation over at Jorgensen Law if you give them a call at 727-347-7733. One more time, that's 727-347-7733. And they do not take any fees until they win your case. They are based out of St. Petersburg, Florida. So check out Jorgensen Law, the champions of the injured and the disabled. So the injury report has come about once again. Usually it comes around this time when the Bucs play an East Coast team, and when they're playing a divisional opponent, we are talking about an East Coast team. So looking at the injury report for Tampa Bay today, the big news, once again, Tristan Wirfs is listed as a did not participate with an oblique injury. Mike Evans was limited once again with a collarbone. Jalen McMillan, neck, limited again. And everyone else was full, including a couple of upgrades. Chris Godwin Jr., fibula, went from limited Wednesday to full on Thursday. Same with Bucky Irving. He was full today with that shoulder injury. Baker was a full participant as well, so clearly feeling much, much better. Benjamin Morrison, full once again with that hamstring injury. Hassan Reddick, full with an ankle, and Rashad Wisdom, who's still on injured reserve with a quad, but he practiced in full, so it looks like he's getting closer to returning as well. For the Saints, tackle Talisi Fulaga, ankle, did not participate. Alvin Kamara, knee and ankle, did not participate. Chris Olave with a back injury. He was limited today. He did not practice on Wednesday, but bumped up to limited today. Justin Reed, their safety, knee, did not participate. And this is a new addition. Jonas Sanker, the rookie safety, with it's listed as head, not concussion, but head injury. Not on the injury report at all yesterday, but he's on there today. Did not participate. So I don't know. Maybe something happened in practice, but that's a new addition for the Saints. But let's get back to the Bucs. Good news about Baker Mayfield practicing in full. Good to see the status quo with Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. But damn, Adam, it feels like every single week the Bucs get a return, and then there's something else to freaking deal with. Now, we did see Tristan Wirfs in the locker room moving around, so maybe they're being precautious. But Tristan Wirfs out of practice again with an oblique injury. Give me your thoughts.
Well, they're the battered Bucs for sure, because as soon as, there's news about Mike and Jalen, Tristan Wirfs has to go down. And Tristan Wirfs is really concerning, obviously, because of just how much he means to the offensive line. I mean, you saw what they did early in the season without him, is that they had to move so many pieces around because he's that important. And not seeing him out there in any capacity, like not playing at all, it's really concerning heading into Friday. And Wirfs is a really tough player. Maybe he's limited on Friday, listed as questionable, and he's a go. I mean, you kind of need him at this point. But, Matt, it's really weird because with Grizzard, he was talking about Wirfs and, how nice it was to game plan a touchdown for him, but not having him, be a blocker against the Saints, it's going to be a really physical matchup. Man, I don't know.
Carlito's Way says, no more touchdowns for the big guy, LOL. Yeah, I mean, I doubt it happened on that play. You never know. No. But I think this adds another element to this. And someone brought this up yesterday, so forgive me. I forgot who did. But let's just say hypothetically Tristan Wirfs can't go. And we're not saying that he's not going to be able to go. We're just saying hypothetically. Do the Bucs, because they played games without Tristan Wirfs this season, unfortunately, does Tampa Bay go back to the original Graham Barton at left tackle, Ben Bredesen moves to center, or do you plug and play Charlie Heck at the left tackle position? Because you still got Luke Gedeke at the right side. I think it's worth a conversation. What do you think about it?
I'd probably go with the former. I would put Barton at left tackle and Bredesen at center because you saw it and it worked, and they showed enough confidence to do that over putting Charlie Heck at left tackle. They ultimately had to go to him when Luke Gedeke went down, and he was all right at right tackle. But I would think that the Bucs are more comfortable with Heck at right tackle, like if need be over left tackle. You put Barton there, like he showed he was capable. He didn't make too many mistakes, give up too many sacks, and you ride it out for a week.
It's definitely a sense of comfort for Tampa Bay because they've known and they've seen it before. And I think maybe people would be willing to look into it more because, let's face it, Graham Barton has struggled at center this season. I'm going to stay away from that, though, and probably just stick Charlie Heck at left tackle because I think it was easier to do it earlier in the year when you're just coming off of training camp. Everybody's fresher, healthier. Their bodies aren't as beaten, battered, and bruised and stuff like that. So you're getting more in practice reps and stuff like that. So I think earlier in the season, it was easier to practice more, and you were able to do it in training camp too, where you flip things around, switch things, and Graham Barton's going to left tackle and Ben Bredesen's going to center, and whatever they want to do with the guard position at the time. Now we're talking about 12, 13 weeks later. I think it's a little bit tougher for Graham Barton, who's been game planning every single week against the defensive tackle in front of him, the nose tackle, the different fronts, to then ask him to go to left tackle, for all we know, could be one game, and then throw him back into center. He's obviously a smart guy. He went to Duke. He can understand game plans and different blocking assignments. But I just feel like for one game, especially against a Saints team, which, again, let's be realistic. If the Bucs don't have Mike, Jalen McMillan, and Tristan Wirfs, they should still beat a 2-win Saints team. I don't even care if Luke Gedeke, and I know this is touchy-feely, but I don't care if Luke Gedeke wasn't available in this game. The Bucs should be able to win with their second-string and third-string offensive line against a Saints team that, yeah, is probably a little bit tougher on defense more than the offensive side. But I just don't like seeing Tristan Wirfs on the injury report at all. It's a tough situation for the Bucs, and just frankly an annoying one, because we've seen enough injuries and you don't want injuries at all at any position to any player. But we're talking about their best players, like Mike Evans, the greatest offensive player of all time. Tristan Wirfs, future Hall of Famer, in my opinion, and only helped that resume with the touchdown, last Sunday. It's their top guys that are going down when Tampa Bay desperately needs them. And it almost feels like we're back to square one with this group.
Yeah, like, no offense to Rashad Wisdom, like, he's in the NFL, but there's a difference between him getting injured and Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, like Tristan Wirfs, and all those guys, because all the injuries it's felt like for the Bucs this season are to those key pieces. And I know that there's criticism about Josh Grizzard and his overall play calling, but also look at what he's had to work with some of these weeks, when early in the season, the offensive line was all over the place. And I think you make a great point. It is debatable about what they would do in a situation without Wirfs, because it is hard to kind of move all those guys around this late in the season. And maybe Charlie Heck can hold his own on the blind side, but then you also have to factor Baker Mayfield's shoulder. Like, if Chase Young, who got the better of Wirfs at times the last time, he brings down Mayfield a couple of times, then that becomes a situation in its own right. So I think there's plenty of moving pieces right now, but Wirfs is going to be the guy that we're going to keep an eye on Friday.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's so crazy how quickly the injury front just moves. I mean, again, legitimately last week, it's like, where's Baker Mayfield? Is Baker practicing? What's Teddy Bridgewater doing? Is Teddy going to be the guy? The week before that, it's, oh my God, Bucky Irving. I think Bucky's going to play. Chris Godwin Jr., how's he looking? He's coming back from the fibula. And I don't know. It's like every 15 seconds, there's something new. And I guess that's the news today. As soon as there's one story, the next story pops up. But we literally, it feels like within 10 minutes, we've gone from Chris Godwin Jr. to Bucky Irving to Jamel Dean to Baker Mayfield to Mike Evans, Jalen McMillan, and now Tristan Wirfs. And I don't want to get too far. Yeah, it doesn't. And I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves. I'm not trying to fear monger or anything like that, because for all we know, Tristan's going to be out there tomorrow and be like, yeah, I just wanted to chill out for a little bit. But I think it's important to be prepared for several different angles and variables going into this game. And we spoke about him before, but this really isn't fair to Josh Grizzard either, because every week it's like, all right, what's my personnel? Who am I working with? Okay, now I'll start a game plan. But it's like he doesn't even know until later in the week, just based on all these other injuries that have gone on.
Yeah, and for Grizzard, I mean, that's why I asked him today. I'm like, 2/3 of the way through the season, man. Like, how do you feel about all the ups and downs that this offense has had? And he's like, it's been a week-by-week thing. You know, we're adjusting. We're doing what we can on the fly. Like, credit to the coaches, credit to the players, because even Baker Mayfield added the day before, like, everybody's been involved. I mean, you look at wide receivers like Cameron Johnson, Ryan Miller, like, they've had an impact at times. Who would have thought Dan Feeney would be the right guard the past few games? Like, so much glue has been needed to hold this together. But, you know, it's a credit to Grizzard for, like, you know, still having an offense that's putting up 20, 23 points a game. I mean, everybody looks at last season and what Liam Cohen was doing, you know, putting up 30. But I think the circumstances have kind of prevented this offense from reaching its full capability. And the hope is that, like Dave Canales in 2023, week 14 is that turnaround, because they put up 29 points against the Falcons that week. They went into Lambeau, they put up 30. The Jaguars on Christmas Eve, they were doing something. Like, you kind of hope they reach that this year.
And I do think they have the potential to do so. They just have to have the healthy people in place to go and do it. So who knows? Maybe by Christmas or the New Year they'll have like a full group ready to go. But we'll see until then. And it does have to be put together by a lot of people. I know I like to put together some nice parlays and quick picks and payout boosts over on Splash Sports. And you can join over 2.5 million people playing on Splash Sports, the home for Survivor, Pick'em, and Quick Picks. Whether you want to create your own contest with friends or take a shot at life-changing prize pools, Splash Sports has got you covered. They got different prizes and tournaments every single week. You can do pick'ems, quick picks, all of that fun stuff over at Splash Sports. You can do it for several games as well. Obviously, NFL is king. College football is big too. You can do it for the NHL. I know Lightning Penguins is going on tonight. That'll be fun. NBA is in full swing, so they have it for several sports. You can turn $20 into $1,000 with the best multipliers in daily fantasy sports. And they are doing a big boost payout today. You can get up to an extra 50%, all the way up to 200% extra on your payout boost on Quick Picks if you download the Splash Sports app today using the QR code on the screen. And I'll have Pewter Picks and Props for tonight's Thursday night game between the Cowboys and the Lions. That'll come out just a little bit after this show ends. So keep an eye out for that if you're going to bet on Cowboys at the Lions, which should be a fun one as well. We have a couple of super chats to get to, so let's have at it. First of all, very nice comment from Matt Hinkson, who says, Pewter Report is by far my favorite podcast. You guys are awesome. Keep up all the good work. I'm working on becoming a platinum member. Go Bucs. Well, Matt, thank you so much for the kind words. We really, really appreciate it. It's been awesome to see how many people we've been able to chat with, talk Bucs with, and yeah, we're super grateful, thankful, and appreciative of your support and everyone's support. So thank you for the kind words.
And it's really cool because the past couple of days, like the Spotify Wrapped comes out,
Yes,
and there's been a few people that have like tagged us and like we're their top podcast. And again, as Matt said, just really thankful, really grateful that you guys are out there listening, not just this afternoon, but so many afternoons throughout the year.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's been really cool to see that with Spotify and YouTube. I'm actually going to give a shout out to Richard Balachin. Sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name, but Richard. I was talking to him earlier, and he's been one of our people that has watched Pewter Report and YouTube TV more than Pewter Report TV more than almost anyone else. So thank you, Richard, for your support as well. Appreciate Kings Are Awful for this $4.99 super chat. Says, what's the bigger D-bag move? Liam Cohen lying about his sick child on the way to Jacksonville, or Lane Kiffin saying God made him do what he did to Ole Miss? I understand your anger.
Yeah.
The Liam Cohen thing, it was so long ago. I mean, get over it.
That's water under the bridge right now.
I understand the severity of the illness and everything like that. And for Lane Kiffin, I know this is off topic, but whatever. If you super chat us, we'll talk about whatever. Like the Liam Cohen thing, it's done with. It's over with. Everybody's still happy. The Bucs are playing well. Baker and the offense, they're happy for Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen's still supportive of the Bucs. Lane Kiffin, he's done this everywhere that he goes. So I don't see why Ole Miss should be shocked by any means. He did it to FAU. He left Tennessee after a season, if I'm not mistaken. Everywhere he goes, it ends pretty poorly. And you're just the next one on Lane Kiffin's list. He'll eventually do it to LSU. He'll probably go to Alabama, maybe the NFL. But, that's what Ole Miss signed up for. And he did pretty good for them.
And I think in both situations, Callie Buck said, like, money talks, right? Because Liam Cohen, he was made the highest paid offensive coordinator. $4 million a year ain't shabby. But when Jacksonville fires their GM and says, here's $12 million a year, you'd probably consider leaving too. So, I mean, again, like that scenario, it's come and gone. But for Lane Kiffin, same thing. I think LSU's giving him $13 million a year. I mean, you go there for the prestige, the money, and you only get one shot at it at the end of the day.
That is true. Also, I mean, just crazy to think because LSU still needs to pay off Brian Kelly, who they fired in the middle of the season. So I think one of their main boosters is the person that owns Raising Cane's, the chicken fingers place. So
Mhm.
they definitely do have backers. There's no doubt about that. Let's move it along. I saw David Dosher with a 99-cent super chat. Thank you very
Thank you,
much,
David.
David. I didn't see another comment, but if you do have one, you're usually pretty active in the comments. I was looking for another one. I didn't see it, but if you want to comment again, we will put it up on the screen for you, Sue. Thank you very much. Moving along, Ryan H says, "Thank you for the $4.99
Thank you.
super chat." Says, "Enough of his vague injury BS." Talking about Tristan Wirfs. "If you're injured, no clowning around filming Little Caesars promos. LOL." I'm sure you're joking a little bit with the LOL, but it's not like Tristan Wirfs came back. What was it? Week 4 he came back.
Yeah.
It's not like he came back in week 4 and then said, "Oh, okay, I'm back." And then he played in the Seattle game, said, "Oh, damn, we scored a ton of points. Let me film this commercial." I'm pretty sure that was filmed. They do a lot of that stuff in the off season, like the Baker Mayfield stuff that you're seeing on TV. It's like he didn't film with Bradley Cooper last week. Like they
Yeah.
filmed in the off season, whether it was Popeyes or Uber Eats. A lot of this stuff gets done in the off season when they're not as focused on football because you don't have a game plan or whatever. So I never understood when people get mad at athletes, or Baker certainly has gotten a lot of hate previously, more in Cleveland than here in Tampa, but about like doing all these commercials. They're in the off season. All right.
Yeah.
And commercials are typically, not that I work in Hollywood, but like commercial shoots are typically a 1-day thing, a 2-day thing. I don't know how much Tristan Wirfs holding a box of pizza and saying, "Oh, this is fantastic. This is delicious." I don't think that's really screwing up Tristan Wirfs' regimen too much. And injuries pop up all the time. Tristan's been injured before, not even just this season. So if you're joking around, fine. But some people get really upset over that type of stuff, and it's like, dude, he's filming one commercial. Let's chill out a little bit.
And I think anything with social media, like it gets amplified more with losing. Like Baker Mayfield, like so many people were clowning him
Yeah.
in the Browns because he was at the stadium, like living at the stadium, and he was in these Hulu commercials. Let's clown him. It's like, what if he was winning? He wouldn't be saying anything. So again, like it's fun to joke around with that kind of stuff, but as you said, like that stuff is filmed, before the season. It's not really a distraction unless you let it be. And I think the first part of the comment was kind of talking about like the vague injury updates. And I think there's been more clarity as of late as it relates to Mike Evans and Jalen McMillan. And at the same time, like for Todd Bowles, he wants to keep these things close to the vest. Like he doesn't want to reveal all his cards throughout the season as these injuries happen.
That also, I'm not saying Todd Bowles doesn't know what he's doing.
Yeah.
To go back to the injury wise, well, I know now people will be like, "Well, he doesn't know what he's doing on defense either." That's not what I mean. But like going back to the spring, he's like, yeah, Tristan will be ready for training camp. And then it's like, oh, Tristan Wirfs is actually going to miss the first 2 or 3 games of the year. And that's, how it played out. So, sorry, I lost my train of thought for a second. So like with Bowles, I pay attention more to when he's like, oh, this guy's not going to be back this week. Maybe we'll get him back for the following week. And that was a lot of Chris Godwin Jr. That was a lot of Hassan Reddick before he was able to officially make his return, which I think helped out the defense. So I can't get mad at Bowles. I can't criticize Bowles for something where it's like, maybe he feels good today, maybe he doesn't. So I know we want to know the answers to Tristan, to Mike, to Jalen, but we just gotta have to wait just a little bit longer.
Yeah.
And we have this $5 super chat from Eric Moreno. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
It says, thanks to all the Pewter Report team for the heartfelt support for my dad, and to Adam for the personal message. Thank you, Adam and Scott and Matt. You're very welcome, Eric. We appreciate all your support, answering your question yesterday. I saw you asking about Tristan Wirfs as well. I didn't have a direct answer at the moment. If I had to bet on it, and this isn't a segue into an ad or anything like that, but if I had to bet on it, I would still say Tristan's going to play, just kind of based on seeing him in the locker room and stuff like that. Linemen tend to typically gut out injuries more than anyone else. I think it's just the mentality of the position.
It's a mentality, and then it's also like, they're not running around too. And something like the
Yeah.
oblique, I mean, he's just going to be in the trenches. He's not going to be going 30 yards down the field. So I think I would kind of lean 60-40 with you that Wirfs will play. I mean, this is a divisional game. As seen on the thumbnail, it's also a must-win game because
Yes.
the Bucs really cannot mess this up. They're 7-5, hopefully 8-5. You're going up against a 2-win team that's just so talent deficient on both sides of the football. I mean, they're rocking with the quarterback who, he's working the best with what he has, but this isn't a team filled with world beaters. It's very old, like on defense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no excuses why Tampa Bay should lose this game.
It's technically their second matchup against Tyler Shuck. He did come in the first game for the Saints against the Bucs when Tampa Bay was in New Orleans. He replaced Spencer Rattler, but since then he's been starting games, so has more experience. But that also gives the Bucs more tape to watch on him as well. And to your point, Adam, it seems like really the only guy that can kind of take over a game or hurt the Bucs besides like an insane quarterback play by Tyler Shuck would be Chris Olave, who comes from the long lineage of Ohio State wide receivers that ball out in the NFL. And Olave maybe isn't, at that level of certainly like Jackson Smith and Jigba or Terry McLaurin and stuff like that, Garrett Wilson too. But I think Chris Olave, it's been more of the product of his environment than necessarily his effort and performance. So that's the number one guy I'm looking at, along with Tyler Shuck, for the only thing that can get in the way of the Bucs winning this game as it pertains to Tampa Bay's defense against the Saints offense.
And with Olave, like in the past, he hasn't had big games against the Bucs. So, well, I think Jamel Dean can really neutralize Olave. I think the concern is going to be Devon Vele, the 6'5" wide receiver. He had 8 catches for 93 yards and a touchdown in his last game, but then also tight end Juwan Johnson, because outside of just, Zion McCollum struggling, like covering passes, the middle of the field is still so much of a concern with Levante David and Servassier Dennis. Juwan Johnson, he has 54 catches, 576 yards, and 3 touchdowns. He's having a career year. And so I think it's another opposing tight end that Tampa Bay has to consider. And they don't really have answers, covering the middle of the field still. Not only that, but I know the Saints are rocking with a backup running back, a 6th-round rookie. But against Bam Knight and Michael Carter last week, they gave up 5 yards a carry. And if tackling is still an issue, I asked George Edwards about like what needs to be improved upon. He pointed to that 3rd and 4 play where he had 3 Bucs defenders, not even put their hands on the guy, and he got the first down. So like, even with the Saints rocking with these guys that, people might not have heard of, they might not be the greatest, they could still score some points.
I was losing my mind when the Bucs couldn't get that 3rd and 4.
That was ridiculous.
It was 3-on-1. 3-on-1. And like, it wasn't even, I believe Jacob Parrish was the first one to get there on the play. It wasn't like they met at the yard marker where Knight needed maybe a half an inch to get the first down. He was 3 yards away from the yard marker before they made contact with each other. Tackling was abysmal, especially in the second half last week. So you're right. It's not even New Orleans, too, because forget about Kirk Cousins and his 500 yards against the Bucs last season. It's going to be a short week against the Falcons team that, they've completely fallen apart. But Bijan Robinson's still pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And if the Falcons know Kirk Cousins, he's not going to recreate what he did last year, they're going to say, all right, let's hand it off to Bijan Robinson, Tyler Algier, 35-plus times, whatever the case may be. Now, that's next Thursday. We'll talk about that next week. But, yeah, to your point, it's the little things that if the Bucs don't do it against New Orleans, the Saints will make it a ball game the same way that they did last year in the last game of the regular season, which the Bucs were able to overcome and win. The same thing they did 2 years ago in Tampa when the Bucs had a chance to clinch the NFC South, and they did not in that game. They did the following week, but they had a chance and they didn't. So I get it. It's a 2-win team, but this is a 2-win team that's taken you to the brinks in the last 2 times that they've gone head-to-head in Raymond James Stadium.
Yeah. And with Tyler Shuck, I mean, he's no pushover either. I mean, like, he's completed 70% of his passes the past 3 weeks. He beat the Panthers in that game of 17-7. Although New Orleans hasn't put up a ton of points, let's say they get maybe to that 17-point threshold, the offense needs to do enough to put points on the board too. Like, they cannot afford to not put up 23, 24 points at least. But this should be like a dominant win, even though it's against a divisional opponent. The talent gap should be enough to where, it shouldn't matter. They should win by at least a touchdown.
Definitely, absolutely. And because the Saints haven't scored more than 17 points since the last meeting between the Bucs and the Saints, the Bucs score 23, 24, 25 points. They should win this game. Like, the Bucs defense should not allow more than, yesterday Shawty said 21. I'm going to put it down 1. They shouldn't allow more than 20 points in this game. So we'll see. Definitely a lot on the line, even with a game between a 7-win Bucs and a 2-win Saints team. And it's a bit of rivalry, as Baker Mayfield said yesterday. We hate them, they hate us. So still hate them on their minds. Key to Villain, by the way, says, Matt, you got any recommendations for picks pertaining to tonight's game? Kind of want to money line the Lions. I am going to have Pewter Picks and Props coming out a little bit after this podcast is done. So I'm going to save those picks for that clip. It's under 3 minutes, so you can watch it pretty quickly. But I will say, I love the over. I love the over in Lions Cowboys, 2 high-profile teams that score a ton of points. The Lions are home. I'd probably take the Lions -3 as well, because they don't typically lose 2 games in a row. And Dallas has been great, beating awesome teams. The 2 teams that played in the Super Bowl, they beat them the last 2 games, but those are in Dallas. This one's in Detroit, so I think that's important to factor in. And the reason why I also brought up Key to Villain is because Key to Villain is a very valued Pewter Report Platinum member. So I think it's a good time to say thank you to all of our Pewter Platinum members, starting with Scott Federico, Scotty J, Rachel Gordon, Noah Parr, Dave Anderson, Eric McMillan, Hezo813, Ash Fishpool, Joel L. Rican, Sam, John Dale Morris, Zap Brannikin, RP89, Kevin Thomas, Mario Thomas, Leighton Carter, Brandon Riley, The Guy is Gifted, Alec Bickler, Nick Dubuque, Dominic Tarantino, HK Bucks, The Real Maverick, Brayon Pinkney, Brian Shucker, Black Gold 1999, Steven Zool, King James 813, Fear the Crew, Henry Gigante, Robert Mackin, Todd Pittner, Giles Dowden, Monster Jam Fever, PC Snowflake 937, and Hemp Time. Thank you so much for your support of PewterReport.com. We really appreciate it. Key Villain was a platinum member, but you are still a Pewter Report YouTube channel member, and we really appreciate that. But yeah, thank you to our platinum members. We will have a show tomorrow at 1:30 for our platinum and premier members. We will be talking about, can the Bucs find its mojo again, their defense? Can the Bucs defense find its mojo once again? That'll be at 1:30. We'll answer any questions and comments you have and give the latest injury news, who's in and who's out for the Bucs. So definitely looking forward to that Pewter Insider coming up at 1:30 tomorrow. And then on Sunday, we will have the Pewter pregame show starting at 9:00 a.m., breaking down the biggest matchups and storylines for Bucs versus Saints. We do it every 9 a.m. the day of the game. And then we'll have the Pewter Game Day show, myself and Daniel Morales at 1 o'clock, doing play-by-play, giving reactions, analysis, and everything involved in that Bucs versus Saints game. And we keep it super interactive with the chat as well. So we want to see how everyone's feeling play-by-play and drive-by-drive. So looking forward to all of that. And we also have one more super chat to get to. Awesome. David Dosher, thank you for this $4.99 super chat, who says the Buccaneers should have more sacks this season because of the zone defense we play. We are really missing that elite edge rusher. Adam, how do you feel about this?
They are missing that elite edge rusher, that elite game-changing guy like a Max Crosby or a Micah Parsons, but I wouldn't understate Hassan Reddick coming back. I felt last game there was more pressure, especially compared to previous weeks, because what Hassan does, he's a seasoned guy. He can kind of open things up for Yaya Diaby, who's had a sack in back-to-back games now, and kind
Yes.
of the other guys along the defensive front. I think a big key in stopping Tyler Shuck is not letting him get outside the pocket because he can make throws on the run. He's more mobile than you might think. They need to apply consistent pressure, not just have soft zone defense, but also send some heat his way. I think it could really, it's not going to rattle Rattler, but it could rattle Shuck.
Hey. We've been critical of the Bucs 4-man pass rush, and we've been pretty hard on Hassan Reddick as well. But I do think the problem for Hassan Reddick is he goes out and then Anthony Nelson has the pick six and the huge game against the Saints. But like outside of that, Hassan Reddick brings a little bit more as an edge rusher, even though he's clearly not the guy he was with the Eagles a couple of seasons ago. And that's fine. I mean, he's not a long-term answer for Tampa Bay. They are still looking for that premier, consistent edge rusher because it's great when Yaya makes certain plays, and we appreciate him talking today. But they don't have that consistent threat over and over again. And it's nice when they do it against the Cardinals. But when it goes completely invisible against the Patriots and the Bills and the Rams, to me, that's more important than, oh, hey, let's bully these bad teams and have 7 sacks in a game. So I don't want to talk too much about the draft because there's still plenty of this season going on with the Bucs, but it's like, damn, do you go edge rusher, inside linebacker? There's a lot of different ways they can go with the draft, but definitely more concerned about this Bucs Saints game and this playoff push that the Bucs are trying to go on as well.
Matt, with that, I do have one more question for you as the show comes to a close. It's something I've been kind of talking about with different friends and people, but let's say the Bucs win on Sunday. You know, they beat the Falcons, they beat the Panthers. They're sitting at 10-5. You just mentioned like the lack of a pass rush against these good teams. Overall, what's your confidence level in the Bucs if they make the playoffs to go on a run? Because there is problems. It's been up and down. But if they go on a run, do you have any more confidence in this team?
Right now, I'd say their ceiling is the second round. But I actually did map out on Monday's show the way that the standings are. Weirdly enough, like I know the Bucs defense didn't have an answer for the Seahawks in their game in Seattle weeks ago, but Sam Darnold has not played well in big games and big game moments. So if they're able to get by them, and again, like the seeding will most likely change by then.
Yeah.
They're probably playing the Bears next if the Bears stays the number 1 seed. The Bears typically eventually step on a rake that hits them in the face and something goes wrong for them.
I support that.
Yeah, or they're playing an Eagles team that could self-implode in any moment and they all hate each other and A.J. Brown wants out or whatever the case may be. So the dominoes have to fall in a certain way. I would still bank on them in the second round, but there is a quasi-crazy path to them to get to the NFC Championship game. But how do you feel about it?
I think right now, like the ceiling as it stands is probably the first round. But if they can go on a run and they can get to 10-5, I would agree that they could probably find the right first round opponent, the wild card team. They might be able to beat up on them, but unless like barring some dominance and the returning players really making that impact, it's hard to see them going much further than that. And I think this is just a year where, maybe the magic isn't there. Maybe all the injuries, they kind of have piled up to an extent where they just can never get into that rhythm that we wanted to see. Because early on, man, I still remember it. Like it feels like yesterday, Baker Mayfield was that MVP front runner. The defense was doing enough. They have more interceptions than they had all of last year, but getting everything together, the struggles are still there. When they play those good teams, they kind of go silent. And the Rams game, most people expected them to lose, but not 34-7, man. Like even without Baker Mayfield, like you can't go out in LA in prime time and, not do anything. It's tough right now.
Yeah, there was happier and simpler moments in games earlier in the season, and would like to see that once again. Like, how about just a nice blowout win for the Bucs? Yeah. One that's not crazy close. Just, ease their way. I know there's been a couple of Teddy Bridgewater victory formations, but, let's let's get a Teddy Bridgewater victory formation on Sunday. That's what I'm going to be rooting for, along with fellow prop bets and all of that good stuff. So we're going to have our predictions out tomorrow, who we think's going to win. I have a feeling we might all be picking the same team, but by how much will they win? I think that's another storyline that you can look at for the previews and everything like that. But also, if you're not already doing so, please make sure you're following us on all of our social media on X, Facebook, and Instagram. We are at Pewter Report. And our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV. Please like and subscribe and leave a comment on this video. How confident are you that the Bucs won't screw this up and beat the Saints on Sunday? So that's it for today's show. For Adam Slavon, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you soon for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast. Out.